Yo, what's happening everyone? Welcome back to Transit Talk NYC. Hope you guys are having a splendid day. And for today's video, we're going to be talking about Utica Avenue. How can transit on Utica Avenue be improved? Now, in the previous video where I was talking about how the IRT subway can be improved on, I talked about how a Utica Avenue subway line should be built to greatly improve transit on the area. I did say that I will talk about it more in a different video, and that's going to be this video, but we're going to sort of talk about that as well as other things that I think that they should do to improve transit on Utica Avenue. Now, this comes after the Metropolitan Transit Authority released the Utica Avenue Transit Improvement Study on their official website back in early 2020. So, for today's video, we'll look through the Utica Avenue Transit Improvement Study, acknowledge key information, and I'll also be providing my thoughts on the project as well. Without further ado, let's talk. Now, one thing we need to note before we jump in is that the project has been delayed because of that. I can't say what it is, but you all can read it right there. The project has unfortunately been pushed to the next of the MTA's many capital programs, which to my understanding, this would be the 2025 to 2029 capital program. Really frustrating to hear, but it has to be done. So now let's take a look at the background and study goal for this Utica Avenue project. The Utica Avenue corridor is home to most of the busiest bus routes in Brooklyn, the B46 and B46 Select Bus Service bus routes. They carry 44,000 daily riders, and they provide a vital north and south transit link, brings you all the way to Williamsburg and brings you all the way down to Marine Park, where Kings Plaza is. Connects the subway lines, Eastern Parkway, that's the 4 and 3 trains at Crown Heights, Utica, Fulton Street, AC, and connects to 30 bus routes. Now, being a person that used to settle along the Utica Avenue corridor, I do agree that there needs to be some sort of change to speed up commutes. Now, I do not live there anymore. I did just move away from there a year ago, but pretty much my entire life I lived on Utica Avenue. The Select Bus service was a step in the right direction when the MTA put that into effect, but once again, I think there could be more to be done to improve it. Also, considering the sheer amount of people that live and work around and along the Utica Avenue corridor makes improving transit almost a necessity. Now, looking at the study process and intended outcomes, the MTA envisions to examine the demand through use of statistics, which is very important because if there's nobody that wants it to get done, then it most certainly won't get done, right? And if you guys have been watching my channel for a while, I do tend to bring that up a lot when I'm discussing ideas to improve transportation. Next, MTA plans to analyze improvements to the Eastern Parkway IRT lines at a majority of locations, with the examination of expanded railcar storage opportunities. They also intend on analyzing improvements to transit along the Utica Avenue corridor by improving the existing Select Bus service, converting the bus service to a new form of transit, or extending the existing subway along Utica Avenue, which is my personal preference, but more on that later. And after that, the MTA will compose 5 investment packages based on what they observed, allocate funding, and conduct public outreach. So far, the MTA has big plans for this project. Now, steps 2 and 3 are 2 big chunks of meat for this project, so we're going to take a more detailed look at those 2 steps. So for step 2, the MTA plans to make lots of improvements towards the IRT subway in Brooklyn. First off, the Nostrand Junction, which of course holds back the capacity of the IRT Eastern Parkway line. I talked about this in my Improving the IRT video, so make sure you check that out if you want more information on the Nostrand Avenue / Rogers Junction. But essentially, the junction needs to be looked at, and I'm glad that it is part of this project. Next, the Crown Heights Utica Avenue Terminal. In the same IRT video that I just mentioned, I did talk about how trains take quite a long time to terminate at the terminal, so maybe the aforementioned improvements would take care of that issue. There could be another issue that I'm not aware of, but the MTA does appear to recognize some issue and sees room for improvement at the terminal. Just a quick reminder, if you are enjoying the video so far, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. Next, the MTA plans to look at the New Lots Avenue 3 train terminal. I'm unsure about what issues the MTA sees here at the New Lots terminal, but if it involves some sort of improvement, I'm definitely up for it, and it has all my support. And finally, the MTA proposes opportunities for expanded railcar storage. Now, in the sentence, they did not mention which railcar storage, but I think it's pretty obvious that they are talking about the IRT's yards, and I certainly agree. The A division only has 1 yard in Brooklyn, with that yard being Livonia Yard in Brooklyn, which is accessible at the New Lots Avenue 3 train stop that we just talked about. The yard is mostly used by the 3 line, but it also hosts trains for the 42nd Street shuttle. It's also a small yard with a pretty big to-do list, considering that 2, 4, and 5 trains do utilize the yard occasionally as well. Expanded railcar storage for the A division would be a great investment in my opinion, because once again, there's only one yard that the IRT trains can use in Brooklyn. All the other yards are in the Bronx or Manhattan. I also find it very interesting that the MTA managed to squeeze all of these into one plan. Mind you, this plan is about improving transit on Utica Avenue. To be honest, this step of the plan could be separated into its own project for improving the A division, so to speak. But I'm not too mad at it. Now for a detailed look at the third step. This is the big step. The MTA has 3 ideas to improve transit along the Utica Avenue corridor. First off, improvements to the existing B46 select bus service. Now the improvements to the bus route do appear to be a bit vague, but they do mention issues that reduce the reliability of the buses, such as double parking, long loading and unloading times, and high amounts of traffic on the road. It is important to note that these issues aren't really related to the bus service, but they're more related to how busy the roads are and general traffic issues. Second are huge and very unique investments that the MTA plans to make. First, the conversion of the existing B46 select bus service into a bus rapid transit or a light rail transit line. Once again, these are very unique ideas, and we definitely haven't seen these types of ideas before made by the MTA. For those wondering what a bus rapid transit or a BRT is, it's basically a bus route, but it runs on its own street. Just like how a subway line runs on its own tracks, a BRT will run on its own section of road with the use of roadways. This will definitely avoid issues like traffic, cars using bus lanes, and etc. One example of a BRT would be Cleveland's Health Line. The next idea is to convert the B46 select bus service into a light rail transit. Now, the MTA views the light rail transit to have similar benefits as the bus rapid transit, but it will have some differences, such as the use of new vehicle equipment, as they say it will have respect to operational characteristics and benefits. For an example of light rail transit, take New Jersey's well-known Hudson Virgin Light Rail. I see light rail as a pretty viable option, but I do see a small issue with attempting to incorporate light rail. The issue that I see will be space that will be required in order to incorporate this type of system. Sure, there may be bus lanes already on Utica Avenue, but we're talking about an entire light rail service, which will require tracks on the road and stations. Moreover, attempting to incorporate this on an already existing street will just make it more challenging. Not saying it's impossible, but this will definitely add more fuel into the already existing fire. Now finally, the third idea, which is personally my favorite. Now the third idea involves extending the existing subway to run along Utica Avenue, either from the existing Eastern Parkway line or the Fulton Street line. The MTA is also considering whether to make it fully underground or have a transition to an elevated subway. Now this is what I'm talking about. Now of course, we can all certainly bet that this plan is very old and has come about many decades ago. However, early iterations of a Utica Avenue line from the early 20th century actually had it be an extension from the BMT Broadway line in Brooklyn, which of course is today's J, M, and Z train. I can probably guess why the MTA isn't considering in extending the subway from the J, M, and Z. One reason is because it could require a new subway line, since the existing subway lines, that being the J, M, and Z, are already busy tackling other areas. Of course, the M line is going to Middle Village, and the J and Z both have to serve Jamaica. And if you look at the MTA's study map, which they revealed, the J line appears to be within their secondary study area and not their primary study area. And of course, if you go back, they only mentioned the Eastern Parkway line and Fulton Street line regardless. Now let's go into more detail about the Utica Avenue subway extension from the 3, 4, or the A and C lines, since I know that's what most of you are here for. The 3, 4, and the AC lines do have provisions, and these provisions were built into the Utica Avenue stations on both of their lines. Utilizing the existing infrastructure and provisions is actually a really great call by the MTA, considering the fact that the price of projects are getting higher and higher as time goes by. Provisions on the 3 and 4 line consist of bell mouths on the local tracks. These bell mouths would allow trains to run from Eastern Parkway and turn onto Utica Avenue. And the provisions on the A and C line consist of an upper level that has 2 platforms and support for 4 tracks. I will have a video in the future where we'll get into even more detail about the 3 and 4 and the A and C and how they can both get extensions to run on Utica Avenue. We'll jump into the track map and get into more detail on how those subway lines can get to run on Utica Avenue, but I'm saving that for another video because there is a lot to talk about on that. But of course, I'll just say this right now, I do prefer the 3 and 4 lines to get the extension rather than the A and C. But of course, stay tuned for the Utica Avenue subway video. Should not be coming out too long after this video drops. But regardless, Utica Avenue will still greatly benefit from a subway line, no matter if the A and C line get the extension or the 3 and 4 line. A Utica Avenue subway will bring passengers straight into areas like downtown Brooklyn and throughout Manhattan, and it will be much faster than taking a bus that has to deal with sharing the road with other vehicles. And it will eliminate commuters having to transfer between subway and buses and vice versa. Of course, I just personally prefer the 3 and 4 line extension rather than the A and C line extension. But that's about it for this video. I honestly can't wait until new information drops about this Utica Avenue transit improvement study. Hope you get new information soon. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you want a subway to run under Utica Avenue? Do you think a bus rapid transit would work? Or do you prefer our light rail line running on the streets of Utica Avenue? Let me hear your thoughts, comments, and suggestions in the comment section below. But that's it. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you follow my Instagram at TransitTalkNYC and join my Discord server at discord.link/TransitTalk. And I'll see you in the very next episode. Peace out.